Let's bring in Florida Congressman and Iraq War veteran Cory Mills. Congressman, good morning to you. Okay, so we don't know who the nominee is going to be. We just know that it's not going to be Joe Biden. So are we focusing too soon on Kamala Harris is the nominee, full stop?
Well, I think that it makes sense for them to go ahead and choose Kamala Harris. If you look at how much money has actually been invested into the Biden-Harris ticket, I believe that they would have to take that money and go back to the donors if she's not on the ticket. So this would be about trying to secure the additional donors. But look, let's just go back and look at Kamala Harris. This is a person who actually polls lower than Joe Biden when it comes to a head-to-head race against President Trump. This is a woman who, when she was the DA in California, refused and went into a feud with police unions because she wouldn't actually go after the death penalty for a gang member who had killed San Francisco police officer Isaac Espinoza. But yet she would imprison over 1,500 people on marijuana-related, issues. And so she was appointed the border czar. We saw how that went with millions who came across the border, hundreds who were on the terrorist organization. And I think just to cackle herself, whether it's Joe Biden's gaffes or whether it's Kamala Harris's word salad, I think that you're essentially getting the exact same thing, which is a failed presidency attempt at the Democrats.
Yeah, if she is the nominee, she's going to have to answer a lot of questions on past statements. She does have a long record, and it includes in 2018, she called to eliminate ICE. And as a presidential candidate, she ran on criminal justice reform and holding police accountable. So you have to wonder how those messages play today when there is a push to increase border security and support police.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, she led the defund the police movement. This is a person who actually wanted to start the Minnesota Bail Fund during the 2020 riots, not to try and ensure law and order, but to help those who were burning and setting businesses on fire. And so this is not a person who is, kind of the blue dog Democrat. She actually is one of the most liberal senators, even more so than Bernie Sanders of Vermont. And so I think that if you look at her, kind of approach to actually going after law enforcement officers as opposed to the criminals themselves, as opposed to trying helping secure the border or trying to actually get accountability, she's one of those that's actually trying to do the opposite. And so I think that the soft on crime, catch and release, no bail reform is something that she absolutely champions.
Yeah. Congressman, do you think that she would debate Donald Trump? And if so, what will that look like?
Well, I think that she would attempt to debate the president, but at the end of the day, no one's going to go against his record. I mean, whether it's the trade deals with NAFTA to USMCA, whether it's his Remain in Mexico agreement, Title 42, whether it was the China Phase 1 deal where he brought in billions or millions and millions of dollars to the Rust Belt when it comes to our agricultural sector, strengthening our military, holding our adversaries accountable, eliminating terrorists like Baghdadi for the ISIS as well as for Qasem Soleimani for Iran. So, look, he can run on his actual, a trail of 4 years of success in our economy and otherwise. What is she running on outside of an open border and the world on fire? And so I think a head-to-head race based on the facts, she doesn't be able to hold a candle.
And, Congressman, it's not just the presidential race. A third of Senate seats and all of the House is also up for re-election. So how does all of this impact the down-ballot races?
Well, I think that it works out really well for the Republicans. They have seen the disarray and the dysfunction of the Democrat Party. They have continued to see the division and separation as they try to play the weekend at Bernie's routine, which is now run out. And then you've got cackling Kamala, who has continued to show that she's not even prepared for the vice presidency, let alone to try and take the helm. And so I think that you're starting to see where the American people is looking at 4 years of success under the Republican Party as juxtaposed to 4 years of failure where you can't reach into your pocket and find a nickel. And so we are looking for a big win, not just to maintain the majority, but to grow the majority in the House, to take back the Senate, and to get President Trump back in the office so we can save this republic.
And President Biden has no public events on his schedule today. So we won't be hearing from him today, maybe later this week. Somebody we will be hearing from, though, is Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle. She's going to be having she's going to be testifying before the House Judiciary Committee on the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump's life. What are your expectations for today's hearing, and what would you like to walk away learning the most?
Well, there's no doubt that she's going to try and subvert the efforts of the Oversight Committee to try and get real answers. Whether it was her comment regarding a roof that is too sloped that would, put the federal agents at risk, yet they had FBI agents up there with photos of them trying to wash it off. I think that we need to be looking at what was the advanced team security plan, what was the communication plan, and why didn't law enforcement officers weren't able to be on a emergency comms channel to be able to call the shooter on the roof. Why was the counter snipers not given heads up on what was going on and what was occurring if it was out of sight? And why was a building that was perfect line of sight directly adjacent to a stage at only 160 yards considered to be out of the perimeter? Look, there's too much about this. As a person who I've probably conducted at least 1,000 of these advances, was a counter sniper with the State Department and have done this job, to see that this is more than just negligence. And so I don't think we should take anything off the table, whether it's negligence, whether it's a dereliction of duty, or whether it's intent. We need to be looking at all avenues to ensure that we get transparency for the American people.
Yeah, and what about the fact that the Secret Service said that they did deny requests for additional security for former President Donald Trump? The initial statement from the Secret Service spokesperson was that that wasn't true. That leads to trust issues as well. So what about both of those things?
Well, that's exactly right. Look, even the actual Secret Service detail themselves had said, and senior officials within the Secret Service said, we had been requesting additional resources for years, and it was Mayorkas who ultimately denied this and said that it wasn't going forward, and then came forward and said, well, actually, that's true. I mean, these are the same people who denied RFK a security detail, even though both his father and uncle had been assassinated. So we need to be looking into Mayorkas, who's already been impeached for his failures on the border, as well as now his failures to try and secure and keep candidates who are running for president safe.
Yeah, that's right. And now you have personnel issues, a lack of members of the Secret Service apparently leading to the fact that they can't protect everybody at all times. That's a big deal. Now, you mentioned RFK Jr. Now he has Secret Service protection, and J.D. Vance does.
Thanks to President Trump.
Yeah, well, that's true. And J.D. Vance does as well. If they were already strapped for personnel, now they're stretched even more thin. And I'm sure this is a bipartisan issue.
Well, this is the problem with DEI, Carly. We start looking at trying to fill numbers because they want to try and fill quotas, not giving it meritocracy and ensuring that we can get the very best to secure and help keep safe those who are actually running for elected office.
Well, that hearing's going to take place starting at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We will be watching. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.